Hello everyone, I'm Martin Cervantes.
And I am Santiago Vasquez.
Where, what happens?
I don't know, you tell me, remind me again one more time. Oh, I'm sorry, where communication truly matters.
Yes, welcome everyone. Today it is a very special day. I am ready for spring, as you can tell. I'm tired of the cold weather, so we got to start dressing up differently, and hopefully we get the nice vibes and nice weather coming our way.
You know, every time I see you, you look like a professional model. On the other hand, if you can see, I wear the same blue jeans all the time because
obviously you don't know what my second job is.
What is it?
A professional model.
Oh, dear God. If I have your look, sir, I'll be maybe...
You'll be making money. You'll be making bank.
Oh, God, please. This is... we're so sorry. We're not that comical. But today's a special day. Tell me why.
There's two special things today. Okay? Number one, by the time you see this video, we are celebrating our nephew's win. Today.
Your nephew?
UFC.
Who is he?
Julian, the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez.
Woo!
He won.
Wait a second. The Cuban Missile Crisis. We said that we were not going to talk about politics, but here we go again.
That's not politics. That's a fact.
Oh, that's a fact.
That's a fact. Yes. And also very special because I have the honor, the pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine. Someone that I can turn to and talk to anytime I need someone to talk to. Someone that has made a big difference in our community, continues to work and help. I'm not going to get into her job or what she does, but it's just an honor. It's a pleasure to introduce Judge Lynch. Welcome.
Thank you, Martin.
And this are our special effects that we have right here. So remember, we're very poor people here. So Judge Lynch, welcome to our very simple, it appears to be very minimalistic, but we're hoping that through this podcast, we're able to not just reach out to our community, but also educate our community and also provide information that a lot of members of our community do not have. And sometimes they have a multitude of questions, and through people like you, they are able to learn about the resources that we have in our community. Now, we normally start our podcast by asking people the following question. Judge Lynch, what is your cultural background and your ethnicity?
Well, I would say my cultural background is Irish Catholic. I went all through grade school and high school and Catholic school. And based on my DNA test, the initial test was I was 67% Irish. Then some more of my family members submitted their DNA. Turns out we're 77% Irish. Both of my great-grandmothers, so maternal and paternal, came over to the United States to be domestics during the potato famine because their families were not able to support them. And they were hoping and feed them. So they were hoping to come over. They were best friends. And they were hoping to come over to the United States to get jobs and send money back to help take care of their families.
That's another reason why we get along so good, because of my Irish background also. So that explains it all.
That explains
it all.
You make up the other 23%.
Yes.
There you go.
You must be part of the shipwreck that came from the Iberian Peninsula, circumvented the map, and boom, landed there. Shipwreck.
26%.
There we go.
See, you make up
Yes.
my missing portion.
Yes.
So what do you mean by, before we go on more about you, what do you mean by domestic?
They were coming over to be maids or to work in a household, to be either cooks, maids, do the laundry, all of that.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
For rich families.
Just like many of the current immigrants that we have in search of a better life. Correct?
Absolutely in search of a better life. They didn't have, their families were starving.
This is the amazing thing about this amazing country in which we live. that so many people from all over the world, they want to come here, even to this day. That's to say, and so many people want to come in order to have a better way of life.
Right, and I think that's why I get so irritated when people get upset that people want to come to this country, because unless you're Native Americans, we're all immigrants.
That's right.
And I certainly have benefited from that. And when my parents passed away, we were going through some of the old stuff that they had kept in, these old chests and stuff. And there were actually pictures that we found from the early, late 1800s, early 1900s. And there were signs that said things like "no dogs" and "no Irish."
We were talking about that last week.
So, it's not necessarily your skin color, but it's certainly your Irish dialect would give you away.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, you're coming to take my job or whatever the concern was, so we're not going to like you because you're different. And to me, that's just not, difference doesn't mean worse, it means variety.
For a lot of people out there don't know, but the very first police officers in the United States of America, the very first police officers and firefighters were actually Irish. And that's because that was the lowest job that anybody could actually do at that time. Nobody wanted to be a police officer. It was considered a very low type of, in the social strata, that was actually considered the lowest type of job that anybody could do. And it's tough. Yeah. It's very tough, very tough. So you mentioned this were this was your grandmother, right?
Both grandmothers.
And what year was that approximately? Do you know?
I don't know the exact year, so I don't want to guess. Okay. But I know it was in, during the potato famine. So thank you.
That's
the family lore, yeah. But I have traced it back. My oldest sister and her husband have done a lot of the work, and we know we're from Galway and Cork.
Now, where did you go to school? Where did you go? Are you from Wyandotte County?
Absolutely. Born and raised at 614 North 16th Street, right across. If you remember the old stadium in Wyandotte County, there was a big baseball diamond and what we called the little baseball diamond, or the practice diamond. If you would have walked off home plate diagonal, you would have walked right into our house. Wow. Because you would have walked right across the street and to the big red brick house that was, we used to call it the big old barn. And I used to walk to St. Peter's grade school. When it was St. Peter's, it's now Resurrection, because they've consolidated several of the small Catholic schools. And then I walked to Bishop Ward, and then was offered a scholarship.
Another cycle.
Yes,
Goodness.
Exactly.
No, yeah, that's right.
The mighty Cyclones. And then I was offered a scholarship to Kansas City, Kansas Community College, so I took the full ride there. Then UMKC offered me a scholarship to finish my undergraduate degree, and I worked at the courthouse 37 and a half hours a week during that time, because if they had given me 40 hours a week, they would have had to pay health insurance.
So you were studying and working at the same time?
Yes, I worked. I took a full load of school, and I worked. I'm very lucky. I had great Bob Gardner, who was the county appraiser at the time, and Angela Blazovic was my supervisor, and they were like, "Kid, we want you to go out and do well, so we'll work around your schedule," and they did. And I was able to save enough money that when Washburn Law School and UMKC and KU were sending me scholarship offers, I was able to kind of evaluate where I wanted to go, but also I eventually sold myself to the highest bidder, because even though Washburn was a private law school, it offered me enough that I could go ahead.
I know a couple of Ichabods.
Oh yeah,
my wife being one of
George
them.
Washburn Ichabod, right there. George Ichabod Washburn. I've always thought that the Ichabod looked a little bit like the guy on the front of the Gates bag. If you think about it, because he's kind of doing that, and he's carrying that cane, and I've always thought that there might be we might have infringed a little bit on the Gates franchise.
Okay, so now, what inspired you to pursue a career in jurisprudence?
Well, my father was involved in union politics. I know we're not supposed to get into politics.
No,
but
that's
said
no. As
his
long as we
father
don't
was
try-
a union organizer, and when my dad went to work for the telephone company, he was in the union as the Communication Workers of America. And my brother Tom was on the BPU board, and he was asked to run by friends of his who he had actually worked on the lines with and was an electrician with. And I saw that through their work in politics that they were able to help a lot of people. I can remember when I didn't really know what was going on, but I knew that somebody needed help because we only used the living room at the house on 16th Street. There was like a family room and then this really fancy living room. If somebody would come to the fancy living room, they had lost their job. Tom, can you help me? What do I need to do? And it was pretty obvious to me when my brother was in politics that women had to have a degree behind their name to be taken seriously. You know, this was 1989 when I graduated from college, and 1992 when I graduated from law school. So I really went to law school because I wanted to be able to help people. And then once I was in law school, the family law really appealed to me because that seemed to be when people are at their lowest, and I wanted to help them through that process.
You graduate from Washburn University.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you immediately go into private practice, or did you decide to apply, well, I want to get involved with the local government and try to get a job with the local municipality?
Okay.
What did you decide?
So I had won a national essay contest.
Wow.
So it's the Howard C. Schwab Memorial Essay Contest. My article was Adoptions, Can Parents Change Their Mind? And it was nationally published. Because of that, several of my professors knew that I loved research and writing, and they said, you know, maybe you should consider being a research attorney at the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court for a couple of years and get that experience under your belt, and then you'll be exposed to many areas of the law, and you'll see what you like to do. So I was blessed that J. Patrick Brazel, Judge Brazel, who was also very Irish, by the way, he chose me as his research assistant, and I worked for him for 2 years. At that time, research attorneys worked for 2 years, and then they went on to bigger and better things. And so after the 2 years, I became a prosecutor in the Kansas City, Kansas Municipal Court. Before it was right at that time when the government was unifying. So I was working as a city attorney and as a prosecutor, and that's where I was exposed to a lot of domestic violence cases, and I became very interested in those power and control dynamics and why someone might act that way, because that was not something that I had experienced as a child. My parents were together for 68 years when my father passed away, and they were very happy, and I was kind of shocked that a man would strike a woman or a woman would strike a man in anger. I was like, well, why would you do that? You know, and then I got a lot of education in that position.
So
then I went into private practice after 2 years as a prosecutor.
So I'm assuming you were never exposed to any type of domestic violence to inspire you to do and
The only domestic violence that I was ever exposed to was I had a good friend, who I will not name, who was dating someone that we all went to high school with, and it turns out he was very controlling, and I came up the steps of a parking lot, and he thought that she had been flirting with someone, and I saw him slap her across the face and shove her down into a vehicle, and I voiced my opinion that was not how to handle the situation, and he turned it on me and screamed at me, and that gave her an opportunity to run away. But that was my only personal experience with
So
it.
he never got physical with you?
No, because I think he knew that if he did, I wasn't going to do what she did. I was going to stand up to myself, because you know, the typical bully.
Yes.
You know, if you stand up, they go, oh, wait a minute.
was that also like a turning point where you decided to like, hey, this is something that I might want to get involved?
It was always in the back of my mind that, and I grew up in an era of the Billie Jean King beating Bobby Riggs, and women coming into their own in athletics, women coming into their own, like my favorite TV show was Hill Street Blues.
Yes.
Because Veronica Hamill played Joyce Davenport, a very cool, calm, cool, collected attorney, right? So I always wanted to be that person who was going to take care of the underdog.
Wow.
No. Once you started to work for, well, before it became the UG, you were working in Kansas City, Kansas, the municipality. What were the domestic laws like at that time? Because I became a police officer at that moment when the laws
We're changing. Yes.
And as we all know, back in those days,
Right. That was a family matter.
Yes.
And although you may have been called by neighbors because of the screaming, you were not empowered by the law to do a whole lot.
Correct.
Victims didn't have a lot of services. They did not have a lot of support. And it wasn't really until our current president, Joe Biden, I do not know why he became so involved in the Violence Against Women's Act, but he really shepherded that through the Senate and got that law passed, and that established the Office of Violence Against Women, which I think the name probably needs to be changed because we know that 1 in 4 women suffer domestic violence at some point in their lifetime, but we also know that 1 in 9 men suffer. So I think certainly it's more predominant that women are the victims, but I think Office of Violence or interpersonal violence, something like that might be more at this time. At this time in our country, maybe we should rename the act. I don't know, but it's VAWA, the Violence Against Women's Act, and that's what enabled all of the protection order statutes throughout the country. Because you can, if you are a victim of domestic violence, you can go to any county court in any state across the country. And if you are fleeing, so if you and I are married and we are living in Kansas, I can run across to Missouri, I can go to Iowa, I can go to Nebraska and say, he's abused me, this is what happened, and I need a protection order. And you can get that protection order. Custody issues and separation of property get a little complicated, but it can all be handled through that beginning process of a protection order.
A female that is being abused physically, verbally, by her husband or her boyfriend don't have to stay within the county to file a protection order.
That's right. And the reason for that is you don't want your victim to have to remain in the community in which they're being victimized, and they need, we always think of separation from the violence means safety, and in most cases it does. Sometimes there's some statistics that show us women, and I'm going to be gender specific here because we do know that women are more predominantly the victims, but there are male victims. I don't mean to minimize that at all. But we know that the average is 7 times that a victim leaves a domestically violent relationship before she stays good stays gone for good. And one of the things that is frustrating about that, and it's frustrating for police officers, it is frustrating for our victims advocates, it's frustrating for the judge. Why does she keep going back? Why is she doing this? Well, there's some reasons for that. Number one, financial. It's just been in the last probably 10 years that women have equal earning power of men, and we still know that we only earn about 77 cents on the dollar that men earn. So there's financial issues. They can't pay for their apartment. They don't have their own vehicle. Those types of things. If there's children involved, the children miss their dad. Yes. Just because you beat your wife doesn't mean that you're not a good dad. You could be in your children's eyes, you could be a great dad, and they miss him. And mom, can we go back to dad? Yes. And sometimes dad uses the children as a weapon to get mom back.
So that's what you mean by they live 7 times.
They leave 7
and they
times.
come back because of that.
Right.
Until they finally decide it's enough is enough.
And the police officer goes out and he thinks, why do I keep coming to this house? Because she clearly, there's something here that she keeps coming back to. Now, the police officers get a lot more education because I have, and I know other judges and other prosecutors have gone, and when you're going through your academy, and we educate, and I know that you have to get so many training hours each year,
Correct.
and I'm sure you get all of that education now. But when you're in that moment, and you're looking at that woman who's standing there with the black eye again, it gets frustrating that you're like, why am I here again? And you just have to continue to lift them up, give them their resource options, do the lethality assessment, and keep trying to encourage them to get out of that relationship.
Now, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say that I know that through my 27-year career, the training that was offered to police officers changed for the best in regards to domestic violence issues. We started to bring, and I'm sure, and I'm going to brag about you a little bit, because I know through your efforts, a lot of our chiefs of police that we had throughout my career, they started to listen to other people, to the experts, to the judges that were handling these cases, and they started to bring different organizations in the efforts to educate or law enforcement officers. Now, for those that, let's do it like this. How do you define domestic violence, legally speaking?
Legally speaking, there's the criminal side of things, okay? And I don't deal with the criminal issues. I deal with the protection from abuse, which states that if you have physically harmed someone or you have used threats of physical violence to control and coerce another individual. And, I think when we say violence, everybody pictures in their mind the guy who comes home and he gets drunk and he's had a bad day and his wife burns the roast and he punches her. That's certainly domestic violence, but there are many different forms of domestic violence.